we'd go to town if we lived in the farm. We'd go to town on Wednesday and Saturday nights and walk up and down the street and making eyes at the boys and that kind of thing, and then sometimes pair off or something, with and just walk with the boys and had them old, cars. It was in the 40s, early 40s, because I graduated in 42. So that one, been about like the 1940, and I can't remember. But we were never told anything, and we never really. They never said, "Well, come home at a certain time," or anything like that. They just kind of trusted us in a way, But like I said, most of the thing that we did was go to dances. We went all over to dances, in smaller towns and Sioux Falls, and went roller skating and stuff like that, and I suppose, and I'm sure we went to the movies too, but we weren't really prepared. We knew we found out from our girlfriends and that kind of thing, what was going on or what could go on. Mm-hmm. That's really about the only way we knew, and I can't remember even in school they didn't really teach you too much about any sex or anything, they didn't even bring up the word, so, and even the books didn't. I mean, you knew the parts of the body, but, that kind of thing, but that's the only kind of thing I knew about.
How did your parents react to you beginning to date?
I don't know.
Never really said anything.
They never really said anything, because they back in those days, they knew most of the kids that we ran around with, and lots of times, like we'd go over to our friends and stay overnight over there, our girlfriends, so they wouldn't know what time we got in, But years ago, we used to have dances and stuff, maybe we wouldn't get home till 2 or 3 o'clock, but you were at the dance, and stuff like that. That's what they had dances in the auditorium and even at the Catholic place where they had dances, and they had barn dances, and stuff like that, but they never, questioned anything. I can't remember too much. And like my last year in high school, see, the folks that lived on the farm. Let's see. By Bridgewater, I was a junior in high school, and during the summertime or something, they moved to Mitchell, and my dad started working for the Coke company, and so I wanted to finish high school in Bridgewater, so I got to stay at the people that ran the bakery, and they had 3 kids, and I could stay there if I babysat when they needed it, or worked in the bakery. It was a bakery and a malt shop. I think they had like barbecues and roll, and the bakery stuff. And I worked there all the while my senior year. And so I never had a lot of free time, there. I can't remember. I started getting fat. I worked in the bakery. The boss would go away, and this other girl and I, we'd make ourselves some rich butterscotch malted milks, and and then you used to have the bakery. They made their own rolls, and then they'd make this frosting. Then you'd open up a big cans of nuts, and you'd dip the dip them in there, and it was all peanuts or nuts all on top, across the top of your roll. They didn't just sprinkle them. You dunked them in there, you know. So I still remember that. Oh, we used to do that. And we could eat anything we wanted, you know. They never, you know. Same way with in the other cafes that we worked in. When I worked at that one in Ruby Ann, why, that was, you know, nowadays they have to pay for their meals.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could eat whatever you wanted, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they never got much wages, of course, but then you surely got plenty to eat, you know. So I remember that. And then after I graduated from high school, I went to Sioux Falls. And I thought I was gonna, and I got a job at, where was it? First job I got was, in a butter, making butter, or wrapping butter. It's like in a creamery-like thing, a bigger place. I can't remember what it was, what the name of it was. And I stayed with some of our neighbors. It was our neighbor's daughter and her husband. I stayed there and walked, and had to walk across the railroad. And of course, that's been, you know, just about 60 years ago. But even then, you know, you were, you know, kind of afraid, you know. And this friend of her husband worked at this Morel, some job, Morel's, I think it was. And he would, when I got off work, he would always be walk me home, you know, be there to walk home with me. And then I finally rented an apartment with another gal, closer to town, closer to work. And then I was working. Then I got there must have been salt in the butter, you know. And then my hands broke out, so I had to quit there. And what was it? I quit there. And then I worked in a cafe, a little cafe, down on the south end of Phillips or Maine in Sioux Falls, not very far from the post office. It was just a small counter cafe, you know. I worked in there for a while. I can't remember how long either. And then I finally decided I wanted to go to school. So I wanted to go to Notre Dame College. And them years, you know, never had any money, of course. And they never had any grants or anything like that you could get. So then I rented this apartment with another gal, and I worked in the Ruby Ann Cafe and went to school. And I couldn't handle both, so then I finally had to quit school. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, you know, but I couldn't do both, so I just finally quit and worked in the cafe. And then I worked at the gamble store. I worked there quite a few years. I can't remember. I still worked there after we got married, I think. Isn't that terrible? I can't even think. I used to walk. My folks lived, I worked in Gambles before I was married, or when I got married. And then my folks lived way out. Well, they lived on 7 blocks east. And then and Gambles was about 13 blocks one way. And I would walk back and forth to work. But even at noon, we didn't have money to get a lunch downtown most of the time. Or if we didn't take it with us, I'd walk home at noon and back within this hour, you know. And then finally, I don't know, I think we borrowed some money and got married. We were so poor. I remember then I had this bedroom. The only piece of furniture we had, I had bought a bedroom set when I worked at Gamble's. And Ralph still has it. I'm kind of disgusted with sometimes. Well, mother and I, you know, we would trade. You know, like she'd get tired of something or curtains, you know, and she'd say, "Well, why don't you take mine for a while and we'll change," you know, and stuff like that. And so then but then that time she she took my bedroom set, and I think I finally, I had gotten a new one then, when we lived on the farm. And then when she died, or sometime in between that time, Ralph and Betty needed that bedroom set, needed it or wanted it or something for one of the kids, you know. And they still have, it's still up to Ralph's place. It's not an antique-y thing. It was one of those waterfall things, you know. I don't know if you know what I mean. That round,
yeah,
that,
I think
you
I
know.
saw
But it had this great big, huge round mirror, you know. And I think I'm sure Ralph still has it, and he's never offered. Oh, I at times once in a while I would make some remark and say, well, gee, I wouldn't mind having that, you know, or something like that. But he never said anything, so he never offered her, him and Betty, and so I just, rather than cause any problem, I thought, well, whoops, just heck with it. I won't, you know, I just won't say anything. He knows it's mine, but probably I'll never, never get it anyway, you know. So rather than cause any problems, I just figured it wasn't worth it, you know.
Mm.
Same way with the mother had this library table, you know, and it's old, and Ralph has it upstairs. We didn't have any room at the time to have it, you know, or anything. So then he took it. Well, it's still there. And then she had this nice little rocking chair, a little wooden, I don't know if it was maple or hardwood, really nice, small little rocker, you know. But she did give that to him. Because I think she said something about she'd got it when he was a baby and had used it for him, you know, to rock him and stuff like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, so I never said too much about anything, you know, about stuff that she had, and, you know, like I know sometimes I suppose he has like Dad's guns and stuff like that, but I just let it pass because, you know, there's no sense in arguing about it and making hard feelings because that wouldn't do me any good. So, I don't know.
So, how did you adjust to married life? Was there any way that you were prepared for that? Any advice or any
Not really.
warnings or?
No, not really. Our biggest struggle, you know, was always a lack of money, and then I, you know, got a job right away at the grocery store right after we got married. Well, I had been working in Mitchell, and I think I quit. And we didn't have any transportation, one car, old car, you know. And at that time they had trains, and you could go back and forth to Mitchell on the train, you know, for a little nothing, you know, and that's the way I would go part of the time. And I can't remember how long I worked. I stayed working at at Gamble's after I got married, and then they opened up a grocery store in Mount Vernon, and I worked there for quite a few years. I can't remember.
And how about?
It wasn't always full time. It was, you know, we just like maybe sometimes just part time or whatever, you know.
How about when you had kids? What did you expect? What did you know about having kids?
Nothing, because we weren't around anybody that had little kids, you know, like any other little cousins or anything like that. I mean, any of our, I can't remember now, like, there really, on my mother's side, there wasn't anybody, you know, that we were close to, really, and my dad's was the same way, so we really weren't around kids and babies very much, so.
You didn't know anything about giving birth or anything?
No.
What pregnancy would be like?
No. Charlotte and I went through our first pregnancy together. See, she had Doug and I had Gwen 2 weeks apart. So that's the only, you know, that I don't know if Charlotte knew any more than didn't know any more than I did, you know. But we were so close, you know. We went back and forth and visited about at least 3 times a week, you know. We'd play cards, then go back and forth, that kind of thing. And that was the only thing that I knew what to expect. And when I had Gwen, I had that other kind of a, what do you call that, spinal, where they freeze the lower part of your body, you know, that kind of thing. I had that. And then Charlotte had a cesarean when she had hers. And I can't remember when was born. It was beautiful, October 26th. It hadn't froze or anything yet. And then when I came back from the hospital, I was going out to stay with the folks. I was in the hospital 10 days or 14 days, and then I went to stay with the folks, and then we got a big blizzard, and Gwen had the colic and the, what do you call that stuff in her mouth, thrush. I think that was Gwen. Yeah, that was Gwen. She had that thrush, and we had a terrible time between Mother and I, and Elwood was out on the farm, you know, and he'd come in for a few days at a time, then he'd have to go back and, you know, go back home, and I stayed there maybe, you know, a couple of weeks, then I went back home, and I can't remember, but I know she had that stuff in her mouth, and the colic. So,
How did your relationship with your parents change after you were married and had kids?
oh, not really. Just that they were, you know, they enjoyed their grandkids, grandchild at that time, just one, you know. They enjoyed them, you know. We're happy to be around them. I don't think it really changed any. But
What do you do that your mom or your dad always did? Do you have any personality traits or phrases that you say, bedtime routine, food likes, or anything
nothing I know of.
that you do and you catch yourself saying, you know, that mom used to always do that or dad used to always do that?
It's terrible. I can't remember, but things, you know, that we did way back then when we were younger, you know, growing up at home. I can't remember of anything that would be something that I gained from them or do like they did, you know. I don't remember anything.
Do you know how your personality is like your mom's or your dad's, or who would you say you're more like? Or
I don't know. A little bit of both, I guess. I don't know. Ellen thinks I was more like my dad, you know, but I look like my mother, so I don't know.
what traditions did you grow up with in your home when you were a kid that you want to make sure continue, or you wanted to continue with your own family?
None that I know.
Holiday traditions or weekly traditions?
Like I said, I don't remember, you know, much, except, you know, like when we were on the farm, went to town, that kind of thing. That was the only thing, and, you know, dances and stuff like that. But other than that, we really didn't have any kind of thing that we did. I can remember, you know, like going to church and being in the Christmas programs and stuff like that, some of the things, because one time we had this, I was at church and I had to get up and give a little verse, you know, and I hit the Christmas tree and I knocked the bell off, some ornament off the Christmas tree, and it fell on, broke, and it fell on it was like a register in the floor, you know, and that kind of thing. I can still remember that at church, but other than that, I can't really remember too much about anything special that we did, you know, because, like I said, sometimes we would get together with some of on Dad's side, aunts or uncles, you know, but then, you know, some of them lived far away, and the other ones lived in Freeman, and so we would go down there sometimes, but nothing really to, you know, no traditions of any kind. Just, if you could, you could. And they were all about in the same boat as Dad, you know. Well, some of them, you know, I can't remember my two uncles, three of them, of my dad's brothers, they moved to Chicago and Wisconsin, two in Wisconsin, you know, and then the others were around. And like I said, some of them, you know, cousins I don't know this to this day really know them, you know. And the tape done yet? Ain't that page done yet?
Almost. What did do you remember that your kids did anything that reminded you of your parents? Or your grandparents?
No. Not that I know of.
Did your parents play any musical instruments?
Harmonica, my dad did.
Anything in particular? Any certain song that you remember?
I can't even remember what it was.
Was he pretty good at it?
Oh yeah, not too bad. I can't remember that one was. Home Sweet Home, or what is that one? I can't remember. I think that's what it was. But I know he used to play the harmonica. But other than that, we didn't have any. We had a radio, you know. And of course it was run by battery when we were, you know, growing up and stuff. And then, yeah, probably only listened to the news and a few shows that we listened to, you know, Beverly and Molly and Gangbusters and some of those kind of things, you know, that we listened to on the radio. And I can't remember Gwen was about 3 or 4 when we got our TV, black and white TV. And I had that one picture, you know, where she went to the, for her birthday, went to KORN, or what was his name, some guy that had this program, and you had a birthday, you could come to that program, and she was on TV. I think I have that one, don't you remember seeing it?
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, it was a little black and white, you know, picture of her in the TV. She was either around 4 or 5, I can't remember exactly. Because see, that's when we lived in town, in that one house there. That's where we got the TV. And she was only, you know, like I said, 4 or 5 then. Trying to remember. We lived in town. Because in between Julie and Gwen, you know, there was so much difference, you know, that I can't remember which is what happened to which, just about, you know, things like that, you know. But after Julie was born, then, you know, Gwen was 11 years old, you know, so it was quite a span. And I had like 2 miscarriages in between that time, you know. And I could remember Mother would come out, you know, and stay a while to help. But help me. And she was always very good about that, you know. She would do anything for you. But like I said, she, you know, I try not to think of the bad things that she did, you know, or, you know, her attitude, you know, like that, because it was not good sometimes. So.
Of all the places that you mentioned that you lived, what's been your most favorite
Place?
in your whole life?
I liked it in Mount Vernon when we had that double trailer. Well, I liked either one of the trailers that we lived in, right in Mount Vernon. But then, you know, then we moved because my job was in Mitchell, and Elwood could get more painting and more work, contract painting through Mitchell places, and it was so much traveling and stuff. So so then we finally moved. But no particular reason, rather except the neighbors and stuff like that. That we had enjoyed going back and forth or visiting. Nowadays, you don't know your next door neighbor hardly.
Do you know what your parents expected or hoped for you when you grew up? Did they have any?
Never, I don't remember. Are they ever saying anything?
They didn't say that they wanted you to graduate high school for sure or something like that?
No. We did. Let's see, Ralph never finished high school. I don't know if he even ever got his GED. He could have, but that was the year the folks moved, and I don't know, when he was little, he was really tiny. He was really small for his age, and stuff, and I don't know, and then when they moved down to farm south of Mitchell, he would have had to take the bus to school. He didn't, wasn't crazy about that, so I don't know, he just stayed out on the farm then and I worked for that guy, and but like I said, I don't think he ever did finish. I don't think he ever did get his GED, and I don't know why he didn't. He could have just as well, but then he didn't really need, didn't really need it in his line of work.
Do you remember any other special things that your family had? I know you've mentioned some of the furniture that's at Ralph's and possibly some guns, and you have some silverware of your parents or grandparents?
The old silverware of my mother's.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was not expensive silverware.
Right.
You know what I meant? At that time, to her, it might have. It wasn't the kind that I'm using some of it there, that other stuff. You don't have to polish it, or do you? Yeah, it does too. That's the kind. If you don't use it all the time, you have to. It gets black, and you have to. I don't know what they call that stuff, But I can't remember, and I don't remember, some of the stuff that my mother had, like quilts and my dad's mother always made quilts, and I remember mother had some, but I don't remember where they went, at the time. If after she passed away, I can't remember seeing any at all. I don't think Violet got anything, because she was that far away, so I don't really think she got anything of my mother's. Might have gotten some little thing, but I don't remember what it was.
Now, do you say your mom's name Anne or Annie?
Well, it was Anna.
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 A-N-N-E.
No, A-N-N-A.
A, okay.
Anna, yeah.
Anna.
Or was it I-E? Look at the obituary, I can't remember. So I was thinking Anna. They would just call her Anna. Or Annie. Well, I don't know. Like if her friends call her. I'll have to look once. To see how they had it. I don't think it was A-N-N-I-E on the obituary thing.
I think I've seen it A-N-N-E, but...
Oh, did you? Oh.
But I don't know.
I don't remember. Sometimes I sit there at nights and look through them boxes of stuff, and just kind of, while I'm watching TV. Oh, quit yawning.
A couple more and we're done. Or
Good.
one more, actually. And then a couple more after that. If there was one time that you wish you could have had a camcorder, when would it have been in all the years?
That's quite a question.
Thank you.
Oh.
Or a couple times.
Yeah, I can't. That's something I can't remember. Just maybe like when Violet and Bill came, and with their 2 kids, and Ralph and Betty's 2 kids, and Gwen and Julie wasn't even there. I don't think that the last time that they were home, or something like that, the boys were along with Gwen, I don't know if Julie was even born then. 7 years difference, might have been. Just sometime like that when they would have all been there, because they didn't ever come very often. The boys hadn't been here. The Violet's and her family all together hadn't been here with the boys. We lived on a farm then, and that must have been in the 60s someplace. I can't remember what other time I would have liked to had one. Let's see. I can't remember any other time really, except at weddings maybe or something like that, like when Dan got married or something like that, we didn't have anything like that.
And what's your eye color?
I guess
Blue?
I think it's blue.
Yeah. And your hair, how would you have described your hair?
Like this, in the back. In the back.
How do you, what do you say?
Well, it was kind of brown.
Brown.
It was kind of brown. It was kind of brown.
And your height?
Oh, let's see, about 5'3".
And let's see. What's about the most difficult thing you've ever been through in your life?
Let's see. Well, other than funerals, that kind of thing, it's been difficult sometimes. But I can't. Having to move, so often, I never, having a lot, or, never having, what would you call it, an income where you never have to worry about anything, that kind of stuff. Never. As I say, had to borrow money to get married. I don't think we got out of the hole yet. Just about that bad.
And how have you made it through the difficult times? What gets you through?
Well, like my dad was so sick, when Ellen was so sick, I suppose prayer and, hoping things will get better.
How about dreams? Do you have any strange dreams or any repetitive dreams? Any funny dreams?
No, one night I thought I was in a flood. Other than that, then I've never been around water. I don't know why. Must have been during they had those floods, No, I don't really have too many problems with that. Just depends on what I watch tonight on TV to see what kind of dreams, or what book I'm reading or something. Goes along with that.
If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Gee, maybe we're to Hawaii to see Greg. Would that be nice?
Mm-hmm.
I wish your folks would have got to go.
Yeah.
Gosh. You know,
Yeah.
it would have been nice.
And what's your motto in life? If you were to have one.
If I were to have one, mostly just be nice to people. If you're nice to them, maybe they'll be nice to you.